Our ancestors had some pretty good ideas, and some of them can even help improve people's lives today. Welcome to Eco Africa. I am Chris Alems, joining you from Lagos, Nigeria.
What works best is often a combination of traditional wisdom mixed with cutting-edge innovations. We've got both on today's show. I am Sandra Kahumza Twinovideo, right here in Kampala, Uganda. It is great to have you with us. Here is what we have coming up. Indigenous plants provide women in Niger with food and income. Why more wind turbines might soon be made of wood and not steel. And why fish are dying out of the coast of Denmark. But we start right here in Uganda. Our booming population goes hand in hand with a booming construction sector, and that can take its toll on the environment. Engineers are looking for alternatives to climate-demanding materials, and they have come up with some promising ideas.
These bricks are dry pressed and not fired in a kiln. They're made of sand and a bit of cement and a lot of muscle power. And no wood since there's no kiln. Ugandan architect Stephen Juko believes a switch to alternative construction materials is long overdue.
When you drive through many forests, they're no longer forests. You don't feel that darkness surrounding you. So the problem is dire, that we need to stop firing bricks to make our houses.
About a quarter of each brick is made out of cement though, and cement manufacturing produces a lot of CO2. But the interlocking bricks are easy to assemble, so they need less cement than regular ones do.
The block that comes out is the interlocking. It interlocks at the top, at the sides and the bottom. So by that we reduce the amount of cement used to build a structure. In that way we are reducing the emissions by reducing the cement and the amount of trees or vegetation that would have been cut down in order to produce a brick or to build a house.
In Uganda, most houses are still made out of kiln-fired bricks, which mostly use firewood. There are thousands of small brick-making businesses like this throughout the country. And the ongoing housing shortage means their bricks are in high demand. Using pressed bricks instead could help save a lot of firewood. The homes still look the same, and for the homeowners, they also offer other benefits.
Constructing with interlocking bricks enabled us to have our building in less than 2 months. It fit in our budget, and then we also saved because the money that we would have used to transport materials.
The construction industry is a major climate killer. Cement manufacturing accounts for some 8% of global carbon emissions. That's why engineers are studying ways to reduce or eliminate cement in brick making, including Marion Nuwahereza. She works for Eco Concrete, a company that makes cement using volcanic ash. Traditional cement is made out of limestone, and firing it emits massive amounts of CO2.
When you heat 1 kilogram of limestone, you emit about 44% of it as carbon dioxide. You only retain 55. So for 1 ton, when you put in all other production emissions, you find that for 1 ton, you're emitting about 500 kilograms of carbon dioxide. That is about half of it.
The engineer has been working with students at Makerere University in Kampala on the new process. Volcanic ash is plentiful in Uganda. Just like in ordinary cement, the recipe calls for sodium hydroxide, but the mixture doesn't need to be heated, so the process uses 5 times less energy than limestone-based cement. The result is what's called geopolymer cement. Their tests have shown that this product could cut emissions by 80% compared to Portland cement, which is used around the world.
We've been using it in blocks, building blocks, and we've also done water absorption tests, and these materials are proven to be better than Portland cement.
The engineer and the architect share a common goal: to help make Uganda's construction industry more sustainable.
The majority people can do are watch what they eat, how they get to work. But with engineers, it's different. They actually have the space to innovate and reduce the carbon dioxide emissions.
As someone who studied in the building profession, architecture, and then with my colleagues in engineering, we're responsible for many of the designs. So the process starts with us. The recommendations we make or the specifications we give to our clients.
While Stephen Juko has been using his bricks for several years, Marion Nuwahereza is starting pilot production and hopes she'll soon get the green light from local authorities.
It's amazing how just one good idea can have such a positive effect on people's lives. In our next report, we'll stay with the elements and go from water to wind power. We all know wind turbines are a great source of clean energy.
Yes, they are, but the actual construction of the steel turbines can use a lot of carbon dioxide. That got innovators in Sweden thinking, what about making them from a different material?
Wind power is environmentally friendly, but building the towers isn't. The materials have a big carbon footprint, especially when the towers are made of steel, as nearly all of them are nowadays. That's why the Swedish company Modvion has turned to a traditional construction material, wood.
It's
built out of 4 modules, which are assembled into a tube section. You stack them on top of each other, and in the end, you get a tall tower.
For Modvion, the sky's the limit.
We're going to build up to 214 meters.
The first commercial turbine has already been erected in Skara, northeast of Gothenburg. It's not quite that tall yet, just 105 meters. The tower is made of layered laminated wood that's bent into shape.
Gluing wood together is much stronger than bolting or screwing it.
Modvion says the wood is farmed sustainably. The first commercial tower is equipped with a 2-megawatt turbine. Unlike steel, wood can also withstand the harsh conditions of offshore operation.
Water and steel don't go together. Wood and water work great together. We protect our towers with a coating on the outside so they can withstand the climate at sea.
In 2021, the Danish company Vestas invested in the Modvion startup. They also built the turbine in Skara. If the innovative wood turbine towers catch on, it could help make wind power even greener.
Solutions like that can really blow your mind. For our next report, we stay in Scandinavia and head to an island water body in Denmark that looks beautiful, but in fact has almost no marine life left in it. That is because the water is in very poor health.
The Baltic Sea, with its stunning nature, is one of Northern Europe's most popular travel destinations. And the coastline along Valje Fjord is one of Denmark's most expensive residential areas. But its superficial beauty is deceptive. His weekly fishing trips continue to show fisher Lasse Mikkelsen how the fjord is slowly dying. Below the surface, algae is blooming, clouding the water and depriving fish and underwater plants of vital light and oxygen. Scientists' footage shows how the bottom of the fjord has become nearly devoid of life in waters that once were full of cod, flounder and lumpfish. It used to be a real fisher's paradise, says Mikkelsen, but now there are almost no fish left. He's been going out to sea for over half a century. Mikkelsen had hoped to continue fishing after retirement to supplement his pension. Now, taking the boat out is not really worth it anymore.
It makes me both angry and frustrated that nobody is really doing anything. It seems like those who should be taking action are only trying to shift the blame.
In Mikkelson's mind, Denmark's farmers are to blame. The small country, with just under 6 million inhabitants, is home to twice as many cows and pigs. And many farmers use fertilizers on their fields that eventually end up in the sea. Christian Arlid Madsen's farm lies only a few kilometres from the fjord. He says he has already cut the use of nitrates to the bare minimum. He uses satellite images to monitor which fields need to be fertilised and which can do without. But he thinks it would be impossible to give up fertilisers altogether.
I think it's a good thing that we have reduced the nitrogen, but I don't think that we can get any further. I think we are at the lowest limit that we can accept as farmers.
Plants need nutrients. The grain won't grow without them, says the farmer. And since reducing the use of fertilisers, his plants are already only surviving on what is left in the ground. Mads Fjeldsø Christiansen is aware of the problem. As a nature manager, he is overseeing a project aimed at restoring the ecosystem in Valje Fjord. He knows the hard facts and numbers.
At this point, we know for a fact that 80% of the nutrients emitted to Valje Fjord comes from farming. We also have 10% today from urban wastewater and maybe 10% from fish farming. But that is the range, and that tells a little bit about where we need to look.
The nitrate runoff regularly causes algae growth to explode. The bloom covers everything in the fjord, even killing the eelgrass due to light deprivation. That same eelgrass is one of the most important elements in the ecosystem along the Baltic Sea coast. It produces oxygen and provides habitat for smaller fish. That's why Christensen and his team from the municipality have taken to planting new beds of eelgrass in Valje Fjord. But the restoration project is complicated. Artificial reefs are being built and mussel farms created. These blue mussels filter dirty water, which in turn allows more light to penetrate deeper. Eelgrass can return and therefore produce oxygen. But when too many nutrients are flushed into the sea again, causing the algae to return, the fragile balance is thrown off. And the nature manager's concerns are not restricted to the Valje Fjord.
We have hit this breaking point. The system has collapsed within the last 5-6 years. So that's just the beginning. We will see this situation all over the Baltic.
Along the coast, the ecosystem of the inland sea has become disrupted. Lasse Mikkelsen sees little other than crabs in the nets he puts out in the Valje Fjord. Since they no longer have any natural enemies, they've become a plague, destroying the eelgrass, eating the mussels, and killing the young fish.
Dead cod.
Mikkelsen hopes that everyone in the region will take more responsibility and act to save his fjord, because the problem Denmark is currently looking to solve is already threatening the Baltic Sea's entire coast.
That is certainly a worrying situation. We all need to take responsibility for the good of our planet. And talking of responsibility, here in Africa, it's we women who certainly carry a lot of it. After all, we are still very often the ones who look after the home and the family, including, of course, preparing meals.
And the fresh produce for those meals often come from the markets, which is great. But in the heat, a lot of it spoils quickly. Luckily, though, there is a very cool solution that has the power to make that problem a thing of the past.
On the outskirts of Lagos, fruit and vegetables are being grown for the more than 15 million inhabitants of Nigeria's largest city. There hasn't been room for that within the city limits for a long time now. Rapid urban growth means it takes longer to get produce from the farms to the customers. That means the harvested vegetables have to be delivered quickly, as there is a lack of refrigeration facilities across the country. A large proportion of fresh produce spoils before it can be sold. It's something that's frustrated Ramata Olauke ever since she opened her business 13 years ago.
We try to sell new produce before the end of the next day. When it's very sunny, we cover it so it won't spoil quickly. The price drops when it's no longer fresh. Before, I sold these for almost 10,000 naira, but now I had to sell them for less than 6,000 naira. Once they've spoiled, we have to throw them out. It's a waste and we lose money.
At the same time, many people in Lagos haven't got enough to eat. Michael Sumbola is the founder of Lagos Food Bank that distributes food to those who need it. He says food waste is increasing.
An average Nigerian wastes about 189 kilograms of food per year. More than 40% of the food we produce is lost across the entire agricultural value chain. The value of food that goes to waste, right, annually in Nigeria is more than 750 billion US dollars. Most of our farmers don't have that capacity to store food for a long period of time for future sale. A lot of food that ends up in landfill causes greenhouse gas emissions that affect the climate.
There is one solution to the lack of cold storage space. Cold Hubs was developed by a Nigerian startup financed by a wide range of international investors.
We intend to extend the shelf life of this produce from 2 to about 21 days. So this cold room has been helping a lot to solve the problem of post-harvest losses and food waste.
Cold Hubs now operates in 28 states in Nigeria and has over 6,000 customers. The walk-in cold rooms are located next to markets or on farms and are cooled entirely using solar energy. Customers like trader Kabiru Musa pay the equivalent of 25 euro cents per day for a stored crate of vegetables. To him, it's worth it. Now he can charge higher prices for his produce because it stays fresher for much longer.
Before, we used to buy in small quantities, just enough to ensure we would sell out the same day. But now that we have the cold room, we can buy in bulk and store them without any problems. At any time, we can meet our customers' needs by simply fetching what they ask for from the cold room instead of asking them to come back the next day.
For many traders, however, cold storage remains a dream. Solutions like Cold Hub are still very limited, and there's enormous demand. Some 220 million people live in Nigeria, and the population is growing faster than almost any other country in Africa.
We're staying with the topic of food in our next report. In many rural communities in Sahel region, women are rediscovering indigenous plants that grow wild, which were once an important part of their ancestors' diet. In times of climate change, these have many benefits.
The women are skilled at plucking the leaves off the twisting branches of jigger trees. In the village of Danbuda, they're in demand. The women can harvest the leaves all year round, using them to cook or to sell at the market in the nearby town of Zinder.
Before, we used to go into the bush to cut wood that we could sell to buy food. Then one day, I went to Zinder for a funeral, and my relatives took me to Sahel Foods in their neighborhood and told me that they buy Adua fruits, desert dates. So I started selling these to them. People at home laughed at me. Why would anyone buy Adua fruits? But then, 2 others joined me. Now, 40 women do it too.
The idea to harvest and market native wild plants came from Joseph Garvey. He grew up in Niger and had long been thinking about the benefits of reviving native dryland trees such as the wild Hansa species.
They used to have Hansa, they used to eat Hansa, but only in times of hardship. So when we started working with them, we started buying their Hansa. At first they were reluctant, they didn't think we were serious, but they realized that we were actually serious, we were actually buying it, and they got involved in harvesting a lot of Hansa and delivering to us. And they became very happy from the extra income they could make. But we weren't quite satisfied because they were harvesting in order to sell us, but they were still considering it something that they'd rather not eat themselves.
Now they've started to change their minds. As a social enterprise, Sahara Sahel Foods raises awareness in local communities about native trees that can provide nutritious leaves, fruits, and seeds, and they've learned to appreciate them.
A few years ago, we had a special training program, and we were showing them different recipes, different ways of preparing Hanza, making nice dishes, nice meals from it. And that really struck on. So the year after, they said that they had very little Hanza to sell us. And the reason they said was that, well, basically, now they were eating the Hanza themselves. So instead of selling it to us, they'd rather keep it for their own needs.
Exactly the result he'd wanted. Sahara Sahel Foods has been active in the Zinda region since 2014 and these days works with 1,500 small farmers and 80 villages. They supply various fruits and leaves from over 20 local plant species, which are then used to produce oil, jam, spices, and pastry. 60 products are now sold around Niger, and some of them are also exported.
Up until today, many people thought that these bush foods are just local stuff and don't have any particular value. They forgot about them because they just grow wild in the bush. But now people have begun to understand that our products are useful. For example, doctors at Sandair National Hospital prescribe foods from our shop, such as Hanza porridge, which helps diabetics.
Sahara Sahel Foods cookery courses are popular. Today, instructor Hawa Habu is showing the women what they can do with Hanza fruit. It has a high protein content.
We have taught them a lot of things, such as how to cook Hanza with sauce made from horn-fruited jute, which they didn't know, Hanza porridge, which they didn't know either, and jujube pop biscuits. Basically, we taught them a lot of recipes.
Joseph Garvey learned a lot from his Norwegian father. Arne Garvey was a young man when he emigrated to Niger with his wife. He began collecting seeds from indigenous plants and resowing them using a direct seeding method. Sahara Sahel Foods successfully replanted 160 local varieties in this way. The farmers followed suit. Here in the commune of Dago, 35 kilometers from Zinda, many of the trees were planted by the farmers themselves.
The whole idea of direct seeding is that you can teach it to the farmers and the farmers can teach each other. And then once you get what we call the WPC economy established, it will have its own momentum. And I would like to inspire people not only here, but all over the world to use their indigenous perennials.
Joseph Garvey also teaches at the University of Zinda. He works together with Dr. Abdul Rabu. The topic of local wild plants is also on his curriculum and has regularly been sending students to train with the enterprise since 2018.
The Sahara Sahel Food Site has become a training ground for our students. It's where they go to learn about the plants that are most often found in arid and semi-arid zones here in Niger.
After 10 years in the Zinda region, Garvey's project is flourishing. Many smallholder farming families are now experts on various local tree varieties and how to care for them, and are passing their insights on to their children.
You know, a child will watch you from a very young age. My daughter understands that it's with the income from these efforts that will buy them certain items. So she follows in our footsteps, and that's why from time to time she sows trees too.
Jamila Yusuf has a regular income and can feed her family well. She's even been able to build her own house. The small seeds have borne fruit.
So, there is still a lot of work to be done. Well, we've learned a lot again this week. We hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we did. I am Sandra Kahumza Twinobio signing off from Kampala, right here in Uganda.
And I am Chris Alems in Nigeria. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget to head to Eco Africa Online for more insightful stories. And drop us a line at eco@dw.com. See you again next week.